Hi, all. Thank you for being flexible with me. I was hoping to be live with you guys today and continue with the presentations that I've been doing with Rosie Network for quite a while now, and I'm very proud to say that Rosie Network. I was part of the cohort, and I've learned tremendous amount of information from Rosie Network. And what I would like to do is share some of those experience that I've had for the last 10 years or so. That was when I first opened my LLC, the first open LLC that I had. And, since then I've opened multiple LLCs and went through multiple market discovery, customer discovery, and market research. Of course, there was a lot of ups and downs and nothing was perfect, but you live and you learn, right? You try and you learn more. So I want to apologize for not being live with you guys, but I'm hoping that this recording will provide the similar knowledge that you are, looking to get away from my experience. So the reason I like to share my experience as often as I can is that so that way, what I had to learn over and over through months and years of trial and errors, you learn it all at once. And if you learn it all at once, you can see the value in two sides of the coins and say, okay, instead of me going down the path that Asif went down, maybe I won't, right? Maybe I will do something better and far more effective and get to the market faster and have the market capture the market segment much faster than Asif would have. So learn from my lessons. And if you see that you are down that path where I made the mistakes, I hope that you will pivot away from that and then do the right thing. So it just comes down to doing the right things in the speediest manner, right? As fast as you can, do the right thing, so that way you are having customer success that scales and sustains itself over time. There's these slides that I have in front of you, but one of the things that I don't have in the slides is artificial intelligence. And that goes without saying that in today's market, artificial intelligence makes a huge difference. Huge as in like we cannot even fathom where and how and what crevices we will have artificial intelligence use cases and how that will impact the way we do business in the near future. Um, in one sense, if you want to capture a mass market, AI is your friend. If you want to capture a market segment, AI is your friend. But if somebody has a better AI than you do, that's not a good friend, right? It's a competition, and how do you compete with somebody who has better AI or somebody who's able to take advantage of the AI solutions? And that's going to be a biggest challenge. And as I'm mentioning this to you, keep in mind one thing is that this is not something new, right? No matter what decade or what generation you start your business in, it's always volatile. It's always very challenging. It is always have its challenges that previous generation might have not experienced. Just like if you start the business 10 years from now, you would experience something different, right? But you also want to make sure that these challenges, these volatility that you're dealing with, you take advantage of it rather than be pressured by it, rather being buried under it, right? Kind of want to get on top of it rather than being challenged and swayed away by it. So artificial intelligence is one of the subject matter expertise that I have. I started off in military, 10 years in the Air Force, a lot of work with lots of different types of people. Not all of them are really friendly folks. So working through the people side of things, I realized that people are people and people are our business. It's the process, the way we deal with people is what makes us successful or not, right? So Air Force, of course, best military, best Air Force in the planet, and having that sort of branding helped a lot to interact with lots of people. And of course, we were always researching for the good guys and the bad guys. So I say that because in a business world, you have your customers and you have your noises, right? So you really have to know your customers, and one of the best ways to know your customers is literally what we do in the Air Force, which is to interview them. which is to interact with them, which is to ask them questions that we might have assumptions about, but beyond our assumptions, what else is there, and how do we incorporate those reality, the facts of the customer's life on a day-to-day basis? How do we incorporate them, and how do we improve their lives through our services, right? And that's what business is all about. So when you are doing your market research, you're doing your customer discoveries, those are the sort of psychological, emotional intelligence that you have to bear in the back of your head, because it's about finding the buyer, but at the same time, buyer that you can scale and buyer that you can sustain. As in, it's not a one-time sale and move on. It's more, how do I develop a relationship? How do I develop a marketing campaign out of a single buyer that bought my product one time, and word of mouth is what you're spending your money on, right? So there's a whole lot of ways to approach this theoretically, but from the theory, how do you apply it? And that's what we are doing this presentation for today. And as as you probably will experience with Rosie Network, there's lots of knowledge, right, in the Rosie Network. There's lots of people involved in Rosie Network. There's lots of people that are willing to, share a whole lot of information with you. I would say, as you're reading and researching, and you're, putting your efforts into the market research, reach out to each individuals that come across your way, right? I'm one of the resource. You'll have many other resources that you can reach out to. And as you reach out to this audience, and reach out to this folks that are helpful to you, ask them how it is that they interact with sort of when they have to make their buying decisions, right? And of course, if you're trying to persuade a stranger for their buying decisions, these are sort of the books that I would recommend, which is Little Red Book of Selling, which I came across recently. And I'll tell you, if I knew this 10 years ago, I would have probably been better off. But now that I've seen it, I'm actually pivoting away from my old strategies into new strategies. So I just want to put that up in front of you, so that way you have the right information at the right time, and you're not wasting your time just going around the market looking for the best buy. Look for the people that will help you to get the best buy, and this book is one of them. And of course, there's always a formula involved in anything you do. So if you want to be a zero to hero, in your zero stage, how do you find a formula and create a hero out of yourself, right? And that there's a whole lot of ways to say the zero to hero equation, but for you specifically as a person who's in the entrepreneurial world, that formula is the SPA method for customer discovery. This method, I find it to be solid enough, but there's lots of precursor to it that you have to really understand who it is that you're selling to and why it is that you're selling. So tweak this formula as much as you can, because in this formula, by applying it from the network that you already have established and the network that you want to establish in the future, keep this in mind that this is not all just about customer discovery, but it's the past and the future of your network. And these network is what's going to dictate what sort of customers and scalability and sustainability you have for your business. So I want to, have you look at my LinkedIn and add me on the LinkedIn. But one of the things that I really want you to take advantage of is our Smart AI community, which is not for AI developers or AI, techies or AI subject matter experts. The Smart AI community is for anybody but the AI techies, but the people that are comfortable with AI. This is a community for people that are on the edge and worried about AI and trying to understand what AI is, but don't have the time and the bandwidth to go to school for 6 weeks or 6 months to figure out what AI is. What we would like to do is have you come in and engage in conversations with us, so that way AI comes to you rather than you go into AI. From your domain expertise, how do you incorporate AI, rather than learn everything about AI and then trying to figure out how to incorporate that to your domain expertise. Bring your domain expertise to this community, which stands for S.M.A.R.T, Specialist, Methods, Advocates, Research and Training. A specialist like yourself with the domain expertise will be able to understand those formulas, right? The methods of how to advocate for yourself or for your community or for the part of the workforce that you're involved with, and how to do research and training for the purposes of AI machine learning. See, AI is not a technological problem, it's a societal problem, because for the first time in humanity, we are seeing the Goldilocks zone of data processing, and data use cases coming together in a strong force. It's only going to multiply in the coming years and decades, because this AI has been in development for the last 100 years, but this is one of the first times that we're seeing that there might be a good AI summer that will last for quite a while, and we're not sure when it will die off, or when it will, the hype cycle will die off, and then the use case of AI will drop below its minimum expectation. So the smart AI community is for you to come in and ask what's happening in the past, excuse me, what's happening today, what has happened in the past, and what does the future look like. And you don't have to be a techie about it. All you have to do is bring your domain expertise and your curiosity, and we will be able to engage with you on these topics. And the best part of it is that you get these real-time feedback, rather than going through 10 years of ups and downs with AI. You're able to get this information from somebody who's been through it for 10 years in an instant and live and real time. So if you're thinking about any business at this point, of course you're going to have your AI challenges, but AI challenges the surface level challenge that you have to really think through and really figure out how it is that you will incorporate that to your business. That doesn't necessarily mean all your other problems have gone away. Right? If you're manufacturing, if you're buying, if you're selling, whatever the case is, you will always have supply chain difficulties. You will always have your input and output difficulties. You will always have the processing difficulties. And AI doesn't necessarily have to be part of the conversation in smart AI community. You bring this problem to us, and we will discuss those problems from AI's perspective, how AI can either reduce or augment these problems on your behalf. Um, I'm going to you know put this in front of you as we speak, that you always have to have a SWOT analysis conducted, right? And these trends of SWOT analysis, as in you have a strength, in you have your weaknesses, and you have your opportunities and threats. These never go away, but they always evolve, right? And that's the difficulty of keeping up with time, is that what you thought 2 years ago was super exciting to start with, 2 years later you realize that it's just not worth it anymore, and you better pivot or you just better quit, right? Quit while you're ahead. So those sort of the mentalities is what I always advocate for, because my specialty is continuity of operations planning and vulnerability assessment. I'm not a data expert just for the sake of data expert. I'm a data expert who understands that there's a vulnerability that comes with the data, and these data vulnerabilities are either manageable, right, or they're out of control, right? Manageable means that you will still have lots of data difficulty, but you are at least able to convince yourself that these are manageable problems. Whereas if it's just out of control, it is just out of control. There's no managing it. But there's no perfect data environment for anybody, no matter how big or small you are. So when I say there's a vulnerability, your vulnerability with data is always on the pipe cooking, right? It's always cooking. There's always data vulnerabilities because of cybersecurity, because of data management issues, data leakage, somebody poisoning your data sets. You have all sorts of data problems, and you will always have them, right? But if you think about it from the marketing perspective, your marketing data that you have, if you're always expanding that data, what you're actually working on is to capture a market segment that you aren't familiar with, and you're continuously are addressing multiple market segments, even though you're comfortable with one, right? So say, for example, you found your buyer, good buyers, nice buyers, and they are there all the time. They sustain you, but they don't scale you. And sustaining is one part of being a business owner, but the second part of it is that you always have to be a growing business owner. You always have to grow your market segment. So that way, whatever threat comes, you're not relying on one single market segment. You have multiple market segments that you can rely on. So it's always about understanding your strength and your strength always have to be that you are always growing. And if your weakness is their one, is that you have stretched yourself thin in your market segments, as in you have 4 or 5 market segments. Difficulty of having 4 or 5 market segments, but let that be the weakness, right? So when I mentioned earlier about data, you always will have losses in your customers, right? Because some customers will come and go, some customers will always stay, some customers are just super loyal at all times, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have everybody else's problem, right? So what is the threat? The threat here is that your business have its own problem, and your business customers have a specific unique problems that you're solving, right? So the threat is, if somebody can figure out how to take your customers away from you, they will, right? And these customers that are coming and going all the time, you actually have to decide that maybe you don't want all the customers to come in and out at all times, right? Maybe they're not worth pursuing, right? So the threat of other competition is a good thing, because if the customers are leaving to go to them, maybe they have a better service, or maybe the customers are not appreciating of the quality that you bring to the table, and the quality that you bring as a Mercedes-Benz versus Toyota. It's okay. Let Toyota have its cake. You be the Mercedes-Benz that you are. Remain Mercedes-Benz, right? Keep your brand. So even if you have to identify your strength, weakness, and opportunities and threats, it's not always negative. It's the fact that the threats will always be there. You will always have your strength, but to put a positive spin into your threats and opportunities and weaknesses, it's the part that I like to advocate for. So going into the threat part of it, right? Who's your competition? If you have a competition that you are familiar with, that's good, but add more to it, right? Get to know your competition just like you would want to know your customers. Because if you're approaching it from the vantage points of a competitor, you will have one sort of difficulty, right? But in order to eliminate your reduce your threats and increase your opportunities, what you would like to do is create a network of competitors, right? So instead of calling them competitors, I just call them the other people doing what I do, right? And if they know me and I know them, is there a threat behind it? Of course there is. But in order for me to know more like they do, maybe they won't share everything, but they do share some things. It's worth it. It's worth it because you will see that the type of business person that you want to become, this very customer oriented, very honest and very dedicated, on all the military characteristics that you bring to the military traits that you bring to the table. Maybe there's somebody else out there that does the same, right? They don't have to be necessarily a military guy or military veteran. They're just another person, another business that's doing the same thing as you, right? So get to know your competition, even though if it feels uncomfortable, because what that does is it reduces your threat a little bit and maybe amplifies the opportunities for you. So make that part of your strength, that you are able to reach out to these sort of individuals and make a different sort of network that maybe your competitions around you doesn't have, because they're so worried about being in part of a network. So I shared a YouTube videos with you on previous slide, which is the SPA model. In the SPA model, it's one of your customer discovery process. But customer discovery, if you think about it, it's an interviewing process, right? And that's what you will see more and more of, is that how it is that this turns into a formal interview, or I think it's called informal interview, actually. And this interview process that you are going through, it gives you an opportunity to really slim down your message, because if you had an hour to write a letter, use the 5 minutes to write a letter, 55 minutes just thinking about it, right? That's been said many times with Thomas Edison and all the other folks that will always say, if I had more time to write a letter, I would have written you a shorter letter. So crafting your message, it is a really a great part of customer discovery interviewing process. Rather than assuming that the customers are out there, why don't you reach out and start interviewing these customers to understand that, hey, these customers are actually going to help me craft my message much better. So when I mentioned earlier about reaching out to a network, and through this network you get to understand what it is that your customers are looking and what does a buyer's mentality look like. Um, it's a continuous process. You'll always have to do it. Either you do it or you hire a sales team to do it, and the sales team will probably have to do the same process in order for them to be successful on your behalf, right? So, what do you have to do in order to be successful? You have to do these interviews. You have to do these interviews that are not comfortable, but once you start rolling with these interviews, it becomes part of your process, and that process separates you or differentiates you from people who assumes there's a customer, reaches out to the customers and try to sell to this customer, versus you have this one-on-one personal relationship with each customers because you have done these interviews. So if you're thinking about reaching out to a customer, always maintain a CRM, right? A customer persona, which is a customer profile. Create this customer profile, create this CRM, create this notes taking capabilities. Because when you have one customer and you're developing this muscle memories, where every time you engage a customer, you write down information about this customer, get their LinkedIn, get their email, get their phone numbers into a CRM system or an Excel sheet. CRM means your customer relations management systems, or just an Excel sheet, plain boring Excel sheets with name, first name, last name, address, LinkedIn, email address, phone numbers. These sort of things will create a muscle memory for you. And as you grow, you will add more of this the muscle memories for yourself and your team. And any person that you onboard into the team, you will be able to train them and say, hey, this is what we do every time we talk to a customer, and this is how we improve this customer profile every time we do talk to them. So that way we have a continuous CRM process, and we can always develop a dashboard where we can see this customer buys a lot, this customer doesn't, and eventually it becomes your business insight, your business intelligence, because you are developing this customer profile. So as you're doing your customer discovery, as you're doing your customer interviews, always be on lookout for how it is that you can create a business intelligence, and that business intelligence eventually becomes your book of business, and that book of business is what it is that you exit with. We can talk more about that later, but I'm definitely going to skip 10, SAM, SOM, and PM, because these are some of the things that if you read it once, you will understand it far better than me explaining it to you. Um, when it comes to your artificial intelligence, the world that we live in today, one things that you probably wouldn't have been able to avoid 10 years ago is the talk of cloud, right? IaaS, PaaS, SaaS, all sorts of as a service materials that came to the surface 10, 15 years ago. So as you're thinking about today's problem, AI, 10 years from now, you're not going to have the same problem. Just like 10 years ago, AI was not something that was mainstream in conversation with everybody. But you have to understand that there is a need for these sort of solutions, these sort of technologies. So when it comes to understanding where it is that your strength lies, and how it is that whatever it is your weakness is, you outsource it to somebody else to tap into their strength to augment your weakness. So if you have lots of these needs in order to get in front of the customers, how do you partner? How do you create a network? How do you outsource this work to somebody else to say that, please, take this from me, you do this piece and I'll do this piece, and combined we can actually capture a good market segment. So it's always about understanding that always a market regardless of who is in the market. So if your competition is Microsoft, Google, Amazon, trust me, there's all kinds of companies that are doing the same thing as Google, Microsoft, and Amazon, right? These companies are still vibrant. These companies are still working because, just in US alone, there's millions and millions of customers. And if you look at worldwide, there's billions of customers, right? So those billions of customers are not necessarily all going to Microsoft, all going to Google. You will always have a market segment that you have to capture. Who's in that market? how it is that you address that market, how it is that you get in front of the guys who are buying their services or thinking about changing their vendors, and you are the next vendor that they're looking for. These are your customer discovery process, right? Um, Even if you understand your product very well, you really have to think through that. If I know the product very well, do I know the product users very well? And if I don't, what are some of the things that I have to do? And if I do, what's my time to GTM, right? What's my time to go to market? And how long does it take me to walk through a customer's journey from the day I meet them to the day I close the sales, right? Or get the invoice paid out. These are the considerations that you have to think through, even if you're thinking about challenges and threats. Like this says, your industry, global and national, local levels, right? What are some of the trends, right? Well, if the trend is that you have 6 months runway and it takes 8 months to sell to a customer, 6 months later you're out of business, right? 6 months later, you haven't been able to secure a customer because it takes 8 months to secure a sale in this market. So even if you're having a lot of success, you have to really step back and think through, what does your runway look like, and this runway, how long can you sustain with zero customers, or even with one customer, two customers, five customers, and how many customers do you need at the end of the 6 months in order to stay sustainable and scalable for the next 6 months. A lot of the business excitement comes down to, I mean, this is just a trend with anybody who starts a business, that I have the confidence, but I just don't know what's going to happen 6 months from now. And in 6 months from now, if I'm not scalable and sustainable, well, first 6 months was a success, but next second 6 months is just totally did not work out in your favor. So um, the trend of the market will always shift, and that's where you have to start analyzing AI, as analyzing your business intelligence, your book of customers, right? Book of business, excuse me. Because as you are working through your trend analysis, your business intelligence analysis, your data analysis, all sorts of things, this data is what's going to give you the market edge, right? Market competitiveness. So here's what I'm going with this. If you are that person who's going to be able to bring the data to the table to somebody who's been in the business for, let's say, last 10 years, but hasn't really done a great job of data collection and data processing or data intelligence part, that could be your augmentation. That could be your new offering. That could be your what it is that you bring to the table for your network of competitors or other people that does what you do, right? So because you are enabling them to do better business or more business or stay relevant to this new age of 2024 and beyond. Say if they've been in business since 2014, they don't do cloud, they don't do anything AI, they don't do anything data, but how it is that you incorporate them with new understanding of data, and you augment them using those data sets, and augment them with a cloud system or AI system. If they don't have it, you bring that to the table, yet you have the same market segments as they do, and you are not competing with these businesses, but you're rather doing business with them. And those are some of those alliance partnership that you have to look into, and that's some of the trends that I would recommend that you look into in order to take advantage of that. Um, I'm rather moving a little bit fast in the conversation here, but I'm always looking forward to the interaction actually, where you are able to set up some time and have one-on-one dialogue with me, and I should be able to coach you through it. It's just that the family situation in my home is not that great for a live Q&A at this point. But as you're working through your business, and you're growing your business, and you're scaling your business and sustaining your business, if you have done it already, you probably have an advantage that, for somebody who's a newcomer, that doesn't have that advantage of knowledge, right? They're not able to pivot fast enough. They're not sure what's happening because they don't have the past experience. One of the ways that new businesses will have advantage over you, because you've done business in the past, is similar to what I talked about earlier, that they have not started with data, right? Because the value of data 10 years ago was somewhat of this pie in the sky concept, right? We talked a lot about data collection, but it was still a pie in the sky concept because it just didn't fit right with the budgeting, right? Today with Excel sheet, you can collect all sorts of data, right? And that data over time, you can scale and sustain and grow it, right? So when it comes down to the supply chain, right? Because if you're analyzing why some of the business before you has gone out of business, wasn't successful, think about it from the perspective of not only were they not innovative and they weren't able to handle disruption, they didn't have a process in place, right? So this process that you have to put in place, starting with data, data is the ultimate process pusher, right? This ability to uh, create data sets, data intelligence, data analysis tools, or capability of collecting those data acquisition, or engineering those data. It becomes a superpower for you because, let's say, for example, you have experience, but you haven't used data. How do you pivot into data? But you're starting today. How do you start with data? I would highly recommend that you do that because just like companies that will have asset management, fixed asset management, sorry, asset portfolio, fixed asset portfolio, and a financial portfolio, all sorts of portfolios, data portfolio will become the most advantageous position for any business going forward in 2024 and beyond, because these data will enable your book of business to look strong for anybody to look into your past and say, this is how you have performed for last 9 to 10 months or last 9 to 10 years, right? And that's how your evaluation will happen. And if you're interested more about this data portfolio or AI portfolio, I'm more than willing to sit down with you and talk you through this topics. So the reason I say that is because your competition, as much as you think they're big and they're just super advantages, they are probably not, right? They probably look good in the market cap. They probably look good in many sort of ways that makes them look like the beautiful bird that the birds that they are, rather than actually revealing how much of chaos that is under them, right? So if somebody was to evaluate them and say, this is what your evaluation is, this is how you exit, they probably aren't positioned very well to exit, right? And the only thing they can do is keep surviving, keep surviving. Whereas in you might be small, but you're mighty because you have those data analysis and data intelligence and the data portfolio that enables you to quick evaluation, favors you in the market for prices of exit, and then your data portfolios are just that attractive. And if you're thinking about like, okay, what's one of the example? Think no further than Tesla. Think no further than some of those companies that you would say like, how do they even make money, right? What do they even sell? Well, they don't have to do much because their data portfolio is just that strong, and their data portfolio brings in a lot of investment and their ability to exit quickly. So I think this is where where your homework kicks in, right? When you have these capabilities that we previously didn't have, like say for example 10, 15 years ago, you would have to drive to somebody's house or pick up the call and call them for like after 6 o'clock at night, where you won't get the roaming charges and all kinds of cost that was associated with interviews. This day is just a matter of paying for one internet service. You have all sorts of Zoom capability, Teams capability to just sit down with somebody and talk to them. If you have LinkedIn, you can just set up a time inside of LinkedIn to say, hey, can we meet at this day at this time? I would like to ask you some questions. That's how easy it is today. So these 10 potential customers interview should not be a shock. But here's one of the funnel discussions that I will always bring to your attention is that if you don't have a customer and you're looking for customers, one of the ways you can think about funneling customers is that if you reach out to 800 people via the strongest method, which is the text or face to face, if you reach out to 800 of them, 400 of them will definitely reach back to you, right? That's a good number. That's a 50% return. But email is lower, right? Even if you send a LinkedIn message, that's even lower than email. What's happening is that you have 800 people that you have reached out to. 50 of them are willing to say, yes, of course I'll sit down with you, because you're a real person reaching out to me one on one, rather than mass marketing, like you're just shooting in the dark, right? But you're actually personalizing those messages, and you're reaching out to those 800 people. Out of those 800 people, you're able to convert 400 of them for interview. Now, out of those 400, how many of them can you sell to is a whole another question. But the point I'm trying to make is that, if you do LinkedIn, you might not be able to convert 800 of those, out of 800, 400 into an interview, right? If you do email, it's probably a little bit higher. But if you're able to do this one-on-one interviews, you will probably have a 50% chance of actually meeting these people. And as you do, they become part of your network, and your network grows eventually with word of mouth, because one leads to another. Um, I wanted to actually kind of skip through the Veterati piece, right? The Veterati is an example of, it used to be an example. Veterati is no longer available. Veterati used to be an example of just that. If you are setting up, you know where your network is, you know where your strengths are, and if your strength is just to interview, you can convert more customers towards you than less. And a lot of the times, a lot of people feel comfortable with just emailing people or LinkedIn messaging, which, trust me, I'm on the same boat. I don't have the time in the day to reach to 800 people through physical interviews, right? Um, these customers that you're looking for, are they on TikTok? Are they on Instagram? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on in your email inbox somewhere? Do you have a conference, as a chamber of commerce that you have good connection with, that they're introducing you to these customers? Now think about it. The first question here is, what is the age range? So that goes back to your SPA model, right? If you go back to the YouTube video about SPA model, once you do the SPA model, these are the questions that you have to answer. Because if you think college students are willing to buy your service, think about it. They probably don't have the money to buy it. But if it's a college student's mom and dad that's buying the services for their college going kids, that's a different market. So how do you reach them, and how do you think about the blast radius of where these customers are? So if you're looking at college kids as your buyer and the core, outside of those blast radius, think about who's the furthest point, who's the grandma that will, buy from you in order to have their college grandson and granddaughters have the services from you, right? So those are the kind of things that you have to think about in a spa model. And how are you helping them solve a problem? Like, think about it like, on these YouTube videos, you can always find these tips and tricks on how it is that you can develop a network. Don't think about it from the perspective of selling to a person. Think about selling it to a network. And the book of business, small red book of small business, um, has these little tips and tricks for you, because it's not about finding somebody and taking them out on a date and asking them to get married to you on day one, right? It's about finding the person, taking them out on a date, and then eventually they end up marrying you, right? Whatever the case is. So you're solving a problem. So do you identify the problem because you're the subject matter experts right away, or do you walk them through step by steps, interviewing them with questions, and helping them over time understand that you bring a value that they probably would rather buy it from you rather than somebody that they don't know, which is Microsoft, Google, right, or Amazon. Amazon does the same thing as you do, but Amazon is a big name. So you might not win all the customers from Amazon, but if they see you and they know you and there's a chance that they'll buy from you, they will rather buy it from you because you are there as a person rather than just a corporation name that they're familiar with, and they don't know anything about these guys, right? They don't know Jeff Bezos personally. So you have lots of these advantages that you have to work through. And this is what the tip is, right? Success will naturally flow. So don't take them out to get them married on day one. Take them out so that way they see the value that they should meet you second time, third time, fourth time, fifth time, and eventually they get to know you and they buy from you. These are well proven methods of sales, but it's hard to believe that that's what a lot of these businesses have to do. But of course, there's always this anomalies of, hey, they didn't even know me until that one day they met me and they bought from me. Well, there's always a business like that. It's just I never had one of those business. And if you do, I'm very happy for you because um, that's how the business should be, right? You always find a customer on day one, you sell to those customers, and you always find another customer the next day. That's the easy business. But I guess I should have picked those easy business as well, but I haven't. Um, so I'm going to walk you through your homework real quickly, but I'm seeing I'm coming up in 45 minutes time frame here. Um, if I have one advice for everybody here is that when you have your pitch deck slides, um, every time you do your pitch deck slides, one of the things that I've been really getting accustomed to, as you can see, this is a pitch deck, this is a video I do. I've been doing this a lot lately, and I've been doing a lot of these where I'm actually recording myself speak on what service that I do provide. And because I do this piece, I'm able to create a actual one-on-one conversation with somebody who's not even in front of me. So I'm able to take my pitch deck and I'm always able to record it. So there's lots of tools like Zoom, Loom, Microsoft Teams, or just a video capability inside of your laptop. You're able to record your pitch deck, 4 to 5 slides. And this 4 to 5 slides, you're able to talk through your business, but you're able to see how it is that you sound day after, right? Or day before that, how do you sound? How do you improve that pitch deck? And you're able to record yourself over and over and have multiple versions of these recordings. So it's important that we talk about our pitch decks. And in those pitch decks, not only are we writing a PowerPoint, but we're working through these pitch decks in a video and recording ourselves talking through those videos. So you have I'm using Canva mostly, and I'm using StreamYard to record myself. But you always have Loom. You always have your friendly audience that you can walk this through, run this by. Say, hey, I'm doing this 3 minutes video. Give me some feedbacks, right? Think about it. The power of that is that you have a single video that you can reach out to hundreds of people with and tell them, please review this video and give me some feedback. That's an introduction right there. That's an introduction one-on-one. Without selling anything, you're asking somebody to give you a review on your new business or your new idea and see how it is that they will be able to influence how it is that you do business in the coming days and years, right? So that's the end of the slide. I'm hoping that you find the value in this conversation from this pitch here. I'm looking forward to your questions, and I'll definitely add my um, information with Anna. I'll send my information to Anna and have her share this information to you, so that way you are able to make some time and reach out to me. And I'm wishing you all the best. It takes time, so be persistent, be consistent, and always be persuasive, right? And I would say going back to the earlier part of this conversation where we talked about scalability and sustainability. Um, Even if something feels good and feels like a right idea, always run it through the formula of, is it scalable? Is it sustainable? Because what works today, as life changes, things start shifting differently. 6 months later, that idea is no longer is sustainable. And if you're not scaling, it's definitely not sustainable. So always look through, is it scalable and sustainable? And work through your business. It's always going to evolve. It's always going to find new trends. And with those new trends, how do you identify what's scalable and sustainable for year 2034 or even year 2044? And always think of scalability and sustainability from the exit perspective. So if you have more questions on these topics, I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Take care and have a